Hi there, welcome to my channel and welcome to a new series I'm starting which will update every Monday. This series is my Museum Monday series. I have had this idea for a little while and I've put a fair bit of thought into how I would actually go about doing it. And the idea is to build a museum that's going to be as similar as possible to the museum from Animal Crossing. And this museum from the gallery by Lauren Gumdrops is a good example of the sort of thing that I'm aiming for. I will not just be copying her version into the game, though I will be building my own version. So my plan is to start off by making a Sims version of Blathers, move him into the largest lot in Newcrest, and start building just a basic outline of what the museum will be, and as he makes money, we'll be able to invest that into the museum to build it bigger. Now, when I first had this idea, the Business and Hobbies expansion pack wasn't out yet. And obviously now that that is out, my plan has changed slightly in that by the time I've completed the museum, I could actually open it as a business with Blathers still living on the lot. So that will be my plan, because I think this will take me so long to complete that by the time I've completed it, Business and Hobbies will have been put out on sale for console, and I will have my own copy and I will be able to do that. So for a start, in terms of how I was going to design Blathers in The Sims, I googled human Blathers, and the result that came up was this, which was someone suggesting that Blathers looks like Jack Black from the Jumanji movies and the character that he played there. So that is what I went with. I went into the gallery and looked up Jack Black. There were quite a few different versions. This particular one here I didn't want because he's a global superstar celebrity in it, which was no use. I was planning on changing the personality types anyway, but I don't want to be starting off with a character that has maxed their fame, because that's too much to deal with. So I looked a little bit further until I found a similar looking Jack Black in the gallery, and I went with that one, which was this one. I then went in and gave him the character traits that I thought were the most appropriate for Blathers, which is a geek, a genius, and squeamish. He's a genius because he knows everything about all the items that you bring him for the museum. The geek characteristic is there because it's going to help him find better quality collectibles. And he's squeamish because if you're familiar with Animal Crossing, you'll know that Blathers is very squeamish and doesn't like when you bring him bugs. And I understand that making this character squeamish is going to make part of this playthrough difficult for me. So I'm now just going to put up on the screen the rules that I've set up for myself, or the guidelines that I'm going to follow for this playthrough. So I will be moving Blathers into a house on the largest lot in Newcrest, which is obviously an empty lot, and it will gradually be built up to resemble the museum from Animal Crossing. And hopefully by the time I've completed this, I will have Business and Hobbies, and I can open it as a working museum, and the activities will be things like view art and view collectibles, and people will pay the fee at the door, and that will be how Blathers makes money going forward. So again, Blathers is a genius, he's a geek, and he's squeamish for the reasons we already spoke about. He won't have a job. He'll just make money from selling the duplicates of the collectibles, because for things like digging for fossils, there's only 21 fossils to find, and usually the last sort of 2 or 3 take quite a while to find, and you find a lot of duplicates of some of the more common ones, so there'll be plenty of things. Also, where you dig for the fossils, he will be finding things like crystals, and I'm not going to be putting crystals into the museum, so those are things that he can sell as well. So the museum in Animal Crossing has 4 sections. It has a fish/sea creatures section. I'll be filling that just with fish that we catch in the game and frogs. The fossils will just be fossils that we find in the limestones that we get from digging. The art section of the museum will just be city posters found around city living and space prints found with the telescope. And the bug section of the museum will be filled with insects, which are found in Granite Falls. Now, I could have included more things, like for the art, there was quite a lot of options. I could have included art that the Sims paint, but when I looked into how many different paintings there are, There are ones based on skill level, mood, style, and there's actually hundreds, if not maybe even thousands. And it was going to be too much work because I would have needed multiple Sims to be able to paint them all, because their skill level would have gone up as they were painting. So they wouldn't have been able to paint, like for example, all the paintings that they can do at a low level because they would have leveled up too high. And I want to be able to do this just with Blathers doing the work to get everything for the museum. And for the fossils section of the museum, there really is only the fossils that we find by digging, and there's only 21 of those. So I didn't want the other sections of the museum to be too big to match along with that. And also the way it is, it's mostly base game friendly. I did put in my rules here, you only need outdoor retreat for the bugs, but you would actually also need city living to get the city posters. But other than those 2 expansion packs, you could recreate this whole playthrough with just the base game. In terms of outfits for Blathers, I tried to recreate his everyday wear with that sort of argyle pattern that Blathers the Owl has on his chest, which I'll show an image of here. And at the same time, I tried to sort of put him in colours where he was brown on top with yellow trousers and yellow shoes or boots to look like Blathers' yellow legs. And I also tried to keep him semi in the style of the Jack Black that I found on the gallery as well. So I'm just going to speed through the footage of me getting him ready for play and all the outfits that I chose. I think he has the same footwear on basically every single outfit that he had. For some reason, the person who created this character, they did a really good job of giving their Jack Black outfits across the whole range, but when I got to the winter wear, he was in his underwear. So I don't know if that was a joke or if that was because he was wearing an outfit that's from one of the newer kits that I don't own, or maybe it's from Business and Hobbies, but that was how he appeared when I downloaded him. And just a couple of the highlights of the outfit that I did end up choosing for him. For his everyday wear, I gave him the hat that is an owl head, which is the right colours for Blathers as well. So I thought that was a nice little touch to make him look a bit more like Blathers. And for his nightwear, I gave him the slippers that are raccoons, because I thought that could be like a nod to Tom Nook. He's wearing Tom Nook on his feet. Editing Callie here. This is just a small note that will apply to this and every subsequent episode of the Museum Monday series. I have had to edit myself multiple times because of the way I am pronouncing the name Blathers. It's very difficult for me to say the name Blathers. In case my channel name and my accent didn't already make this obvious, I am Scottish, and where I come from, this surname on the screen here is pronounced Mathers. So when I see this name, the name of this character, because it is spelt similar to Mathers, I have always, on my own, pronounced that Blathers. And there were multiple times throughout this video, despite making the effort to say Blathers, that I have said Blathers. It is much easier for me to say Blathers than it is for me to say Blathers. I find it quite difficult to say Blathers. I've tried to edit out as many as I can, but there may be some instances of me saying Blathers by mistake. If it really bothers you, you can let me know in a dislike and a comment below, but going forward, I'm probably not going to go back and edit it out if I do mispronounce it, so just to be aware that going forward, sometimes I'll be saying Blathers, and probably most of the time I'll be saying Blathers. So I've started the save file in spring. I feel like spring's the beginning of the year. It's as good a time as any to start the file. And obviously I'm going into Newcrest and to the largest lot to place Blathers. Now the thing about the largest lot in Newcrest is it is 8,500 simoleons, so it's a fair amount of his starting funds. So I didn't have very much money left for building his house. I tried to get the front to look roughly like the front and shape of the museum. It's not as deep as the museum will be, but it is as wide. And when I first built it, as you'll see here, I put an archway on, because when you see the museum in Animal Crossing, the doorway kind of looks hollow. So I thought an archway would look nice, but what I forgot about that is, and I noticed this very quickly when playing, is that Sims then just walk right into your property and they'll go to the first door they encounter and treat that as your first door. And the only door I put into this build was the door into the bathroom. So the first time I got a visitor, as you will see shortly, they turned up to my bathroom door. So I had to change that a little bit later on in this video and add in a little built-in area and put a set of double doors behind the archway. I may ultimately change that again at some point, but with the limited funds I have, I thought it looked okay for now. And the interior of this build is kind of similar to just a house rather than the museum at this point, in that there's just a kitchen, a bathroom, a sleeping area and a living area. As I get more funds, I'll expand the building back the way and start to format it, start to add the basement, the areas to either side, and an upper level. Another thing I would ultimately like to add in the game, the upper level of the museum. On one side you have the art display, and then on the other side you have the roost, the cafe. So I might try and put a similar thing in there. I might try and put, once I get business and hobbies, a working cafe up in the top left of the museum, but we'll see how we go. That's quite a long way off at this point. So in terms of lot traits, I decided to put on a few that would help me a little bit with this challenge. So I gave myself penny pixies, which I may remove. I did that initially just to help me with my income. I regularly do that in my playthroughs, I know, but it is a help if you don't have a job. I put on study spot just because it's supposed to be an area of intellectual things, and I put on science layer because I thought they were sort of semi-appropriate to the atmosphere of the museum. I may change those over time because I don't know how much benefit I'll get from those other two, and like I say, the penny pixies is only on right now just to help me with my income, especially if I do turn this into a residential / business lot. It will probably make more sense to have different lot traits on there. And another temporary thing for lot challenges, I've put on wild prairie grass. I've only put that on because cutting the prairie grass you can find things. Sometimes they can be collectibles, but more often than not it's just things like types of nectar or harvestables, which again is something else that Blathers can just sell to make money. So now that Blathers has a basic house, I'm just going to go around the neighbourhood and find all the collectibles that are local to me. So I'm going to find all the dig spots and all the logs to find frogs so that I can immediately start the collection. And immediately I've encountered something I wasn't expecting, that frogs make a squeamish sim nauseated. I've only played with a squeamish sim once before in one of my legacy saves, and I didn't make them squeamish, they developed the squeamish trait throughout my gameplay, and I was taking the approach that I just said yes to any acquired traits that the game offered me. And that particular sim wasn't doing any digging or searching for anything, so I never had any issues with them. I knew that bugs made them squeamish, and I know that cleaning dirty toilets can set them off, but now that he has become so uncomfortable looking for that frog, he's now cancelled off everything else I had lined up for him, all the dig spots and other things that I asked him to do. So I'm going to have to get him to do something else just to wear off that uncomfortable moodlet before I can ask him to start again. And here you see here when Blathers had gone round and collected his first lot of things to collect, on his way back to his house, we found Keido Akiyama was standing at the bathroom door, because that had been automatically set as the front door, because technically with the archway at the front of the building, the bathroom door is the only actual door on the property. So this is the point where I added in the little built-in area behind the archway. At this point I didn't actually have enough to add another door behind it, so I had to partially do it and then go away and sell some of the collectibles that I'd collected and then come back and finish it off. So after introducing himself to Keido and chatting to him for a little bit, Blathers was then ready to get the rest of the dig spots that he wasn't able to get to before, and the last thing I did was send him to the last log there to get the frog, because I knew that would make him uncomfortable. The aspiration that Blathers has, the curator aspiration, the good thing about it is the first milestone of it is just to collect 10 collectibles, and just sending Blathers around this neighbourhood here, he's dug up quite a few things already, and he's almost at that first milestone of the aspiration already. So now that Blathers has finished collecting everything, the things that I'm going to keep I'll put just at the back of his house just now in a spare space, and any duplicates I can sell. For the frogs, I'll probably keep them for breeding, because I'll be able to get more of the frogs collected that way by breeding them, especially at the beginning when I don't have a great variety of frogs. It will also make things a little easier on Blathers and his comfort level if I acquire frogs by breeding them, rather than forcing him to go out and collect them. And after selling that last few collectibles there, I had enough money to finish building that entrance area and add a door in behind the archway to stop people just walking into the house uninvited. Taking a closer look at the frogs that Blathers had collected so far, I could see that he had 2 duplicates and the other 2 were quite different. So by breeding them I had a good chance of creating a new frog. So I put the 2 of those into his inventory and bred them. You have a mixed level of success breeding frogs, because even using two very different frogs, you can sometimes end up just getting one that is identical to one of the parents. But doing that, as you can see there, he's still got just his confident moodlet. It doesn't make him uncomfortable. So I'm going to try to breed frogs as often as I can. The bonus of that is it will help me collect them faster, and also when I do get the duplicates, I can sell them off and it's a source of income for him at this stage in the game. With everything collected in the neighbourhood, I'm just going to send Blathers to go fishing, because obviously I do need him to get fish for the fish part of the museum, and also, again, any duplicates that he gets, we can sell and get a bit of extra income. And immediately when he starts fishing, he gets an uncomfortable moodlet. So yeah, ew, gross from fishing. Blech, this is just creepy. And he's got an icky plumbing moodlet, which I think is because he threw up in the toilet after handling the frogs, and I didn't get him to clean the toilet. So I'm going to have to get him to clean the toilet when he goes back, and that's going to give him an uncomfortable moodlet. So I'm thinking that as part of this playthrough, I'll probably have to hire him a maid service. Yeah, the toilet is needing flushed and cleaned because he's thrown up into it. So yeah, once I get a little bit more money and I'm doing a little better, I will hire a maid for him to do all the cleaning and things so that he doesn't need to get stressed out by that. And there we go, he has achieved his milestone just by catching one fish and the collectibles he got around the neighbourhood, so that was very quick. That's him done the first milestone of his aspiration. And he's on his phone and then he's doing nothing, so obviously he's decided just to stop fishing because he's become very uncomfortable and he needs to throw up again. So I can see that collecting the fish is going to be a slow process, but I'm going to persevere as best I can. And now that I've shown you the setup of how this all looks, I'm going to end this week's episode there for today. And next week we'll carry on collecting what we can around the neighbourhood, breeding frogs, fishing. I'm not going to go looking for the insects in Granite Falls until the very end, but next week I'll probably go out and about and start getting things like the city posters and the space prints. That should be easy enough. That's not going to stress Blathers out because that doesn't affect the fact that he's a squeamish sim. And if I do well making money, I'll start working on things like changing the layout of the museum and starting to move it in the direction that we ultimately want it to be. But for now, I'm going to leave it there. And I'll see you again next Monday when we pick up again with the stories of Blathers the Owl and Museum Mondays. Thanks for watching.